Hello and welcome to the Astrology Forecast. My name is Sage. Here is your eye into the sky, letting you know what the cosmic events are for the week, why they matter, and how you can use this information in your everyday life. I hope that we're all enjoying a beautiful weekend, whenever you're listening to this, coming off of a doozy of a full moon in Gemini week. So, quick check in. Last week's forecast was all about the full moon, as it should be, because it was a lot of energy. So, just a quick check in. I always encourage everyone to reflect if you haven't already. Think back on what occurred for you, especially towards the beginning of last week, and maybe how the information shared during last week's forecast helped you. If it did, please go ahead and let me know. I would love to hear about how we've been working with the energy and the information that's being shared in these forecasts. Before we get started, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for those that have. If you've been getting value from these videos, don't forget to like them. Super helpful. And again, if you are looking to stay up to date every single week, tap the notification bell so you can be notified when a new forecast is posted. So for this week, we have one major cosmic event. However, I do have to give my sincerest apology because I actually did not talk about a very important event that actually happened on Friday, December 1st. So we're going to be doing kind of a combo this forecast week, because while we will be discussing the major event that is happening during the week of December 3rd, we are also going to talk about what happened on December 1st, as this is something that we will be experiencing its energy all month long. So let's dive right in and find out what's happening. So firstly, let's dive into what happened on Friday, December 1st. We're going to backtrack a little bit and then we're going to go ahead and move forward. So this is actually the planet Mercury, and Mercury entered into Capricorn on Friday, December 1st. So a little bit of background, right? Mercury, what is the planet Mercury? Mercury is the planet of communication. It is the fastest planet to orbit the sun, which means that it's all to do with thoughts, right? The speed of thought. Mercury is all about how we can communicate, how we can learn, how we teach. It's what our mind is on, and it's also what's basically coming out of our mouth, right? I always use Mercury as the simple mouth and mind connection because it's an easy way to remember it. So Mercury entered into Capricorn. Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign. Capricorn is a sign that's all about ambition and getting to the top and success. So again, having Mercury in this sign, not so bad. We're coming off of Mercury being in Sagittarius, and spoiler alert, Mercury is actually going to be heading back to Sagittarius. If you know, you know, which we will be discussing why that is coming up. But Mercury will be hanging out in Capricorn for a majority of the month of December. This week it will be in Capricorn all week, so we're just going to be talking about this week. But we are coming off of Mercury being in Sagittarius. Now, one thing I always want to note to make it very clear that these signs follow each other for a reason, right? There's a reason, even just going back to the elements, why fire is then followed up by earth. So fire is all about inspiration. It's all about thinking big. It's all about expanding our mind. And sometimes it's not very realistic, but that's okay, because in order to get inspired, we have to think big, right? It's not always useful to think about what could be, what might happen, what's possible. So that's what our mind was on while Mercury was in Sagittarius. We were thinking about the possibilities, not really considering the practicalities. Now that Mercury enters into an earth sign, we ground that inspiration back into reality so that we can actually have it happen in real life. So, three ways to work with this energy, right? Mercury being in Capricorn is a nice time when we can get really down to earth. So, I'm going to go through three different ways that we can actually work with the energy of Mercury being in Capricorn. So, number one, put it on paper, right? Put pen to paper. What do I mean by this? Mercury is our thoughts. Mercury is what we're talking about. Mercury is all about what's going on in our mind, what's coming out of our mouth, and what do we want to basically engage our mental faculties around. So when Mercury is in Capricorn, we want to make this tangible, right? This is an earth sign. Earth is tangible. We stand on the earth. It is grounded, it is structured. And so, number one, we really want to make sure that during this time, we're utilizing our resources and really, like I said, putting pen to paper. This can look like writing down our goals. This can look like maybe starting a daily journal, starting to take note of how you're thinking, how you're feeling. If you're looking to do any sort of research or teaching or even learning, maybe you're in student mode, this is a great time to actually pick up a physical book, right? Go order that book, or maybe go buy a journal from the store and really start to, take down notes on whatever it is that you're learning about or whatever it is that you're teaching about. Whatever you're creating in general, this is an excellent time to make it tangible. We want to be able to hold it in our hand, right? This is the beauty of Mercury, our mind, being in such a grounded space, such as Capricorn, is that we're seeking ways that we can make things real. If you have a vision board, maybe when Mercury was in Sagittarius, you were thinking big, you were dreaming, you were looking towards the future, and you've got all these amazing ideas. And now that Mercury's in Capricorn, it's time to go online, find some images, find some words, find some photos to go along with whatever it is that you were thinking about, and actually create it into something that you can hold in your hand, hang up on your wall, or maybe put it on your phone background, right? Whatever works for you. This is an example, but it's really just getting to the concept that whatever we've been creating and talking about, whatever conversations have been going on, especially when it comes to our Sagittarius houses as well as our Capricorn house, now we can actually look to how we can make this real. So this is when we really get grounded and get realistic about making whatever dreams we have happen in reality. So that is number one, okay? Number two is we want to consider the long-term vision, right? Capricorn is the builder of the zodiac. Capricorn is all about hierarchy and reaching the top, right? It's the quote unquote boss or CEO of the zodiac. That's what Capricorn embodies. It's its function within the 12 signs. And when Mercury is here, we're number one looking at how we can make our way up the ladder, right? We want to see how we can ascend and reach some sort of success, higher levels of ambition. We might find ourselves talking about this, thinking about this. And this again relates back to our goals. But we want to think long term. See, when Mercury was in Sagittarius, we were thinking a little bit more short term. Sagittarius is known for its spontaneity, not necessarily its long term vision. Now that Mercury is in Capricorn, we can actually make this a long term vision. The picture is expanding, and we're seeing not just, tomorrow, but we're seeing down the road. We're looking at a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years, 10 years. What does this vision of mine look like, right? And what do I actually have to do now so that way I can get there later? See, Mercury in Sagittarius, I love Mercury being in Sagittarius for its expansive thinking, for our minds being expanded. This is excellent. But now that we have Capricorn following it up, it's like, okay, but now I want to make this something that is long term. See, Capricorn is all about tradition. It wants to stand the test of time. And so with Mercury and Capricorn, we're thinking about what is timeless, what is going to be more withstanding and sustainable. In a fire sign, Mercury is much more sporadic. It's much more spontaneous, it's excited, it's enthusiastic, it's saying yes to everything. But as Capricorn reminds us, saying yes to everything doesn't always lead us to the finish line. Sometimes we get distracted, sometimes we get scattered with our energy, and all of a sudden we're thinking about things and talking about things and having conversations that aren't getting us to our goal. So Mercury being in Capricorn is that beautiful reminder from the cosmos that says get focused and get realistic about your long-term goals. Going back to number one, write these down, right? Actually have it written down somewhere. What is your long-term goal? What is your vision for whatever it is that you've been thinking about, or maybe even just, again, talking about? It doesn't even have to be something you've started yet. But whatever it is, start to think long term about it. Think down the road, not just right now, but what it's going to look like in the future. So that is number two. Number three is to get organized. When Mercury is in an earth sign, this is a great time to get our ducks in order, to really start looking at where we can file things away. If I have this great, amazing vision, if I have this picture in my head of how I want something to go, the first thing I need to do is figure out what the next step is. Mercury being in Capricorn is excellent for this. We're able to really think about what can I tangibly do right now to get me there. I know I'm going there. I got excited when Mercury was in Sagittarius, and we will have Mercury going back into Sagittarius later this month. So we will actually be revisiting these big goals and dreams and plans. So if you feel like I'm not done dreaming quite yet, that is okay. But right now, we're being asked to take the vision, right? Stop necessarily expanding it for a second, right? More is not always better. Pause for a minute and start to organize the vision. If this is what I want, what can I actually do to get it? What is necessary? What are the resources I need? See, Capricorn is cardinal Earth. This is the first Earth sign in the sense that this is where Earth comes from. So it's the beginning of getting things started in our 3D, practical, tangible, physical world. So we're really looking at what is the actual next step that I can do, that I can create, that I can actually say I've done, check it off the checklist, right? That to-do list is getting checked off when Mercury is in Capricorn. Get organized. Whatever it is that you need to do it now. And I say that specifically talking about the week of the 3rd, right? December 3rd, because after this week and going into the next couple of weeks, Mercury's going to be doing a lot of things. It's going to be going retrograde. It's going to be moving back into Sagittarius. So it's actually interesting that the beginning of December is a really nice, kind of quieter, calmer time of the month. Honestly, it's realistically the calmest week of the month. And this is a really great time to be a bit more reflective, get more constructive with what it is that we want to learn about, teach about, and talk about, write about, speak about. You guys follow what I'm saying here. And, take this time to, again, get organized, maybe be a bit more reflective. How and what needs to get done? How can I do it? What needs to get done? So that way, when Mercury goes retrograde, I'm not like wigging out, right? I'm not like that emoji that's like, looking crazy, like my head is spinning because I wasn't ready for this. This is your cosmic reminder to get ready. We are in the midst of the Mercury pre-shadow, right? The Mercury retrograde pre-shadow, which means that pretty soon Mercury is going to be going backwards, and everything that it revolves around, technology, communication, travel, it's all going to be a little bit more, haywire. So prepare yourself now while Mercury is in Capricorn and it's moving forward. It's going nice and slow and structured, as Mercury loves to do, especially in an Earth sign, and really just take advantage of this time. Mercury will stay in Capricorn for a long, extended period of time. Normally, Mercury is only in a sign for like 3 weeks, but not this time. Mercury will be moving into Sagittarius come honestly the middle of the month, so we don't have too much time because of the retrograde. It will be moving back into its previous sign of Sag, but it will then go back into Capricorn, and eventually, not quite soon enough, because retrogrades do extend this, but by February, beginning of February, that is when Mercury will actually be officially leaving Capricorn and entering into Aquarius, which also tells us that this is an extended period of time where Mercury is in whatever house you have Capricorn in. I would also take note as to where you have Sagittarius, because both of these houses are where your mind is going to be for the upcoming couple of months. This is all throughout the holidays, the first month of 2024, going right into that second month of the new year. So really take note of what area in your life is getting activated. What are you thinking about more? What area of life is getting more mental focus, more mental energy, more conversations, more research? Again, this is important because it's going to take everything I'm saying, all 3 ways to work with this energy, make it way more specific, tangible, and now applicable to you, your chart, and your life, your experience with the cosmos. So that is the first, also the last cosmic event of last week, first of this week, but it will be in effect for a longer time than usual. So important information to take note of. Okay, so now moving on to the second cosmic event that we're going to be discussing for this week. This is happening on Monday, December 4th, and it is Venus entering into the sign of Scorpio. So Venus has been in Libra for the past month, and this is its home sign. Venus has been chilling at home. She's been comfortable. This is again where Venus can perform pretty much the best, one of the best signs that it does in. Venus is the planet of love. Venus represents everything that we value. This can also include money. Venus is all about art and beauty and relationships, partnerships, romance, platonic friendships. Venus includes everything that connects us with other people, even with our own feelings of self worth, self love, self esteem, self confidence, right? Venus does a lot to do with aesthetics as well. And so Venus being in Libra was excellent. Think back on where you have Libra in your chart, or just simply what happened for you in the month of November when Venus was in Libra, and really how that energy, unfolded for you. And honestly, guys, Venus in Libra was super comfortable, but it didn't really promote the necessary growth that relationships do require. So that is why Venus enters into Scorpio next. So in Scorpio, Venus is actually in one of the most challenged places that it can be. This is a sign that Venus is quite uncomfortable in. Venus rules over its opposing sign of Taurus, which means that in Scorpio, it's in its detriment. It is in its sign that it really functions quite poorly in. And this is simply because the qualities of Venus don't really mesh with the energy of Scorpio. So we just went over what Venus is all about. Scorpio is a fixed water sign. It is ruled by Mars, which automatically can tell you something because we're talking about Venus here, and Venus and Mars are two vastly different energies, which I think is quite self explanatory. So having Venus in a Mars ruled sign is not its best because, again, Scorpio being fixed water, it's all about the depths. It's all about the realness, going deep, and it's intense, it's powerful, but it can be a bit scary, right? Scary Scorpio, because it really does touch on shadows that oftentimes we don't want to look at. When Venus is in Libra, this is the sign of a perfect union, so to speak. Venus in Libra is all about the masculine and the feminine coming together. Libra is actually a masculine sign. And Venus is, of course, a much more feminine natured planet. So we have this blend, this balance, this yin yang energy coming together. And it really does create this perfect union. But then Venus moves into Scorpio. And just like every relationship, you can think about Venus in Libra kind of like a honeymoon phase. And then Venus enters into Scorpio and things get real. If you've been in a long term relationship, you know that it's not all sunshine and rainbows, especially not the deeper and longer you go, right? The more fixed that the relationship becomes. And this is a fixed sign. Scorpio is fixed water. The more fixed the relationship becomes, the more depth it brings. And sometimes that means that you have to face the shadows, the baggage, the red flags, whatever you want to call it, that makes you realize that we're all human and we all come with some skeletons in the closet, right? And that's to be loved and accepted. But sometimes Venus has a hard time doing this because it's not her natural function. And so Venus in Scorpio is, again, a much more intense energy. So let's talk about 3 different ways that you can work with this energy. So, number 1, embrace vulnerability as strength. This goes for ourselves, being vulnerable with ourselves, as well as being vulnerable with the people in our life, the relationships that we share. See, in Scorpio, we have a lot of strength. This is a very strong willed sign. Again, it is ruled by Mars, the planet of battle and war. And so there's a lot of strength here. But Venus being in a fixed water sign, water represents emotion, right? That's why water can actually hold emotion, which is another reason why we should be programming our water. Side note, but it is true, and it's important to note because of the fact that if we understand that water holds memory, it holds energy and emotion, then we can really grasp what Scorpio is all about. This is fixed water. This is water in its fixed state. Still waters run deep, I always say, because that's what Scorpio embodies. This is the water that is not moving. And then basically what that translates to is this is the emotion that's not going anywhere. This is the emotion that is sticking around. We're holding on to our emotions. If you are in a relationship and you know that holding on to emotions sometimes is not always beneficial, that sometimes can result in us holding grudges and resentment and maybe even pushing things down so that way we don't have to address them. But unfortunately or fortunately, they always come back up, right? We always eventually have to meet those shadows and address whatever it is that we aren't looking at. And so, Venus being in Scorpio, we might have to come face to face with things that make us vulnerable. But the key here, the first piece of advice, the first way we can work with this energy is to embrace it. Embrace the vulnerability that Venus being in Scorpio asks us to do, to really dive deep within ourselves, right? Fixed water, there's a lot of depth. If you've ever looked at, the middle of the ocean, for example, there's no waves in the middle of the ocean, but is it deep? Of course. Of course, that is Scorpio energy. In fact, if you really want to go all the way down to the bottom of the ocean, I would say that you may even get a little bit afraid because of what's lurking down there. That is what's happening in our relationships. But if we can learn to embrace this, to embrace the vulnerability, to come face to face with what might make us feel insecure or scared and say that this is okay, this is part of the process, this is what a relationship is here for. It's not always going to be all the beautiful parts of our relationship, which Venus would always say, why not, right? Venus wants that. But Venus has to move through Scorpio. This happens once every year. And during this time, it asks us to, again, maybe look at the shadow side of the relationship and embrace what comes out, embrace that vulnerable nature that comes through as a result of our emotions being so fixed that we have no choice but to examine them and talk through them in that partnership. So that is number one. Number two, the second way to work with this energy is to really have the courage to be raw and to be real in our relationships and also with ourselves. You see, again, Scorpio doesn't do the superficial. Scorpio is not surface level. Scorpio is all about what is going on beneath the surface. What is the truth that is lurking in the depths? And Scorpio has no problem bringing that to light. And so in our relationships, we might find situations coming up for us where we're being asked to show up fully. And sometimes this is scary, hence number one, right? We want to embrace this vulnerability. It is our strength. And we also want to make sure that we approach situations involving partnership with a sense of courage. Again, this is a Mars ruled sign that Venus is in. So Venus is being asked to tap into some of that martial energy, that Mars energy, and says, okay, we're going head first, we're going deep, right? This might be uncomfortable, this might be scary. If you're experiencing a situation in your life that feels that way, take a deep breath and know that this is part of the process of really connecting with somebody on a level that's beyond just, hey, how are you? The basics, right? That surface level conversation. When Venus is in Scorpio, we might find that we're talking to people and we're going really deep, really fast, right? There's that intensity where it's like, okay, but tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your family. Tell me about what keeps you up at night. Scorpio energy, if you have Scorpio energy, you're not afraid to ask that. If you're listening right now and you're shaking your head, that's because Scorpio is not afraid to get real. And so get real with yourself while Venus is in Scorpio. Get real with your self image, with how you view yourself. I always say that Venus is the planet of value. Well, what is your self value? When Venus is in Libra, it's easy to look at the aesthetics and say, okay, check, everything looks great. And then Venus enters Scorpio and it's like, wait a second. There's a little bit more hanging out there. Let me actually, wipe off the mirror. Let me look at what's behind the curtain. And so this is why it takes courage to go down to the depths of what Venus and Scorpio is really asking us to do. So that is number two. There's no BS allowed when Venus is in Scorpio. And so take note of that in your relationships and don't be afraid to be honest and to speak your truth. During the time that Venus is in Scorpio, it will also be forming a sextile with Mercury, which just basically is a very supportive conversation with the planet that rules over conversation. And so we might find a lot of resolution in terms of communicating with people in our life and finding some common ground, some resolution, maybe tapping into topics that are a bit more uncomfortable, that are a little bit deeper than usual, and being able to speak our truth, to voice how we feel. Honesty is the best policy when Venus is in Scorpio, because Scorpio doesn't tolerate lying. Even though Scorpio, you appreciate your secretiveness and your privacy, when it comes to the relationship side of Venus being in Scorpio, we want to get real and raw. And sometimes that requires us to remove the masks, to remove the images and the facade, and really show who we are, what we're about, and what it is that we feel. Keep in mind, this is a water sign. So Venus is tapping into its intuition here. We're not thinking logically, we're thinking intuitively and emotionally, but also with a lot more intensity and depth than normal. And so, number three, the third way we can really work with this Venus and Scorpio energy is to really explore the more hidden side of things. Scorpio is a sign that loves to tap into all the things that nobody else wants to talk about. This is talking about, again, everything that Scorpio rules over. Scorpio rules over the sacral chakra, the genitals, the reproductive system. This is sexuality in its raw form. It is not sensuality. That's the opposite sign of Taurus. Scorpio is that sexuality. It's that really raw energy that most times we don't talk about, right? It can feel awkward, it's uncomfortable, it's too personal. It's not to say that we need to go out and start just telling all of our business, right? TMI is still a thing here. But what it does mean is that Venus, again, is all about creativity. And Venus is, really tapping into the side of our creativity that we don't often look at. This is looking into topics, taboo topics that maybe you don't often check out. Um, you know, Whatever that looks like for you, if it's a private matter that maybe you just haven't really wanted to deal with, but you know that there is a lot to be explored, Venus and Scorpio, this is the time to do it. If you've been seeking more, depth with your partner, if you've been looking into topics that you want to discuss, maybe adventure into, analyze more, have a bit more, depth of study. Venus and Scorpio, this is the time to do that with your partner. Explore the things that you desire that maybe you just haven't been ready to express. This is the time to do it. Venus also does rule over everything of value, including finances. Take a deeper look at your finances when Venus is in Scorpio. I know that's not always comfortable, right? Sometimes it requires courage to see where we're truly at. But again, we're not lying here. We're not BSing here. We have to be honest. We have to be raw and genuine in what it is that we're looking at. And so this can, again, be all about our money, our resources. It can be about our connection with our partners, our friends, the relationships in our life. This can simply be the relationship with yourself and or your creative function, and maybe using your intuition to bring out creative sides of yourself that you've been too shy to bring out. Scorpio is anything but shy. It might be reserved, it might take its time, but it's not shy. This is a Mars ruled sign. There's no shyness on the battlefield. And so Scorpio is not afraid to tell you like it is, and tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. But at the same time, this is why Venus and Scorpio can be so constructive in a sense, because it's allowing us and inviting us to tap into some things that we just honestly never really do. And bring them to light, bring them to the surface. This is that alchemical nature of Scorpio that has the ability to bring the darkness and transmute it to light. So maybe that again is all about your partnership. Maybe that's about your finances, or maybe that's about that creative project that you've been working on. Whatever that looks like for you, allow yourself to explore the depths of Venus being in Scorpio. It might be a little bit scary, not for the faint of heart, but truly worth it if we allow ourselves to remove all the masks, to be vulnerable, and to embrace that strength within us. And so, Venus and Scorpio, this is an energy that we will be experiencing all throughout December. In fact, Venus will remain in the sign of Scorpio until December 29th. So, all throughout the holidays, know that we are asking the real questions that might not want to be answered, but need to be answered, right? This is the part of the relationship that is the work that needs to be done. That sometimes looking at people and seeing their flaws isn't the best, but it is the truth. And when Venus is in Scorpio, we value truth above all else. And so I hope this information was of value to you. We talked all about Venus, especially, so that's of course all about value, as well as Mercury being in Capricorn. Now, next week we do have a new moon coming up, and honestly, a major shift in the month of December. I know we just started December, and we're already talking about a shift happening middle of the month, but that will be happening next week. So make sure you tune in, as we do have a retrograde, a new moon, and honestly just a major energetic pivot point to finish out the year. So With that, again, if you did get information from this and value and you appreciated what you heard here today, please don't forget to like this video. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button. And with that, thank you all again so much. I send you so much love. Have a beautiful week. I will see you all for next week's forecast.